Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Crazy for You Yarns Knitting Podcast, in which we will do a review of Rowan Soft Boucle. This is a brand new yarn from Rowan. It has barely hit the streets, and I know that you are curious about it. So in this episode, we're going to look and I'm going to tell you what it feels like, what it's like to knit with. I'm going to share with you some beautiful designs that are really highlight everything that is beautiful about this yarn. I'm going to show you what it looks like at a few different gauges, and I'm going to share with you some tips that I have found that make it a little bit easier to knit with this yarn. So if you enjoy this kind of stuff and you love knitting, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can just click subscribe and then click that little bell and you'll be notified every time I go live or when I post a new video. If you are watching on Facebook, you just have to follow the page. And I think even if you're watching on Facebook, it's probably a good idea to follow on YouTube because it's a lot easier after the fact to find the videos on YouTube. So let's see. Have some folks. Hi, Jal. How are you? It's nice to see you. Go ahead and say hi if you're out there so I know you are there. But anyway, so let's get to it. Rowan, as you know, is a premier yarn line established probably more than 40 years ago. Their focus has always been on beautiful quality fibers, definitely a premier line, and the designs have been fairly traditional. So let me show you what I mean by that. So this is what I think of, the kind of thing I think of when I think of Rowan yarn. So a lot of cables, a lot of color work, some tweed, very traditional kinds of garments. And then in 2019, they launched their sub-brand Mode at Rowan. And if you have watched me at all, then you know I am totally in love with Mode at Rowan. The Mode line tends to be a more modern, contemporary, simpler lines, a little bit of a cleaner look. The idea is that it can be a capsule wardrobe. It has a very nice cohesive palette. The garments are meant to work together, to be layered, and they're very simple in their styling. So it's not about a lot of fancy techniques. It's about the simple styles with beautiful details. All right, so hi Terry, Risa, Eveline, Danette, B, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to have you. So this is Mode, and Mode has, since their inception, kind of used the Rowan yarns, that what I call their core yarns, the beautiful yarns that are part of the Rowan stable, and both the classic Rowan line uses those yarns, and Mode used those yarns also. But this year, I think Mode, it's the first season that Mode has kind of requested a particular yarn. And they did two. And one of them is this soft boucle. And I think it is just beautiful. So again, the designers at Mode saw the trends. Remember, this is a fashion reflective line. And they saw the trends on the runways toward all of these kind of teddy bear garments, which are just starting to sort of hit ready to wear. And they asked for this lovely boucle yarn. And these are the teddy bear garments that I'm talking about, which I totally love. I think they are beautiful and fun. So that's kind of the history of how this yarn came to be, as I understand it from chatting with David McLeod about the yarn. So anyway, that's the background on it. So let's just talk about the yarn generally. So this is a chunky yarn. It's got a native gauge of 12.5 stitches over 4 inches. And it is a beautiful blend of 45% cotton, 23% alpaca, and 10% polyamide, which is a microfiber that they use to actually create the boucle. And it has a generous 110 yards per 50 grams. So first thing you notice about it is it's a big skein, all right? And it's like I said, it's a chunky yarn. So typically when you think about a skein this size, you expect it to have a certain kind of heft, right? You expect it to weigh 3 or 4 ounces, but this is a 50-gram ball. So it weighs, just over 1.5 ounces. And on it, so when you have maybe just 50 grams of a chunky weight, that might be 80, 85 yards of yarn. But instead you have, like I said, 110 yards of yarn on here. So that's a really fabulous thing because you have plenty of yarn in your skein. But the way that they do that is it's just so light. And that has to do with the construction of the yarn. So I want to show you, it's got 9 different beautiful colors. So let me just show you those as well. So these are the gorgeous colors. There are 7 kind of what I call natural colors that maybe look a little bit like fur. And then there are these, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So 6 kind of natural colors. And then these 3 that I call sort of fun and fanciful. I love this pink one that's got so pretty. They call it shrimp. And then there's this burgundy, which is called plush. And then this sort of rich blue, which is velvet. So I love that. And here is, also wanted to tell you that Soft Boucle has a sister yarn called Merino Aria that has a different texture and a different construction, but it comes in the same colors. So it's just a lovely companion to Soft Boucle. I'm seeing your comments. Let's see. All right, Alberta, I'm holding it right now. It is so squishy. Yes, it's just beautiful. So Alberta is referring, B is referring to the fact that if you ordered the yarn tasting pack, then this was in it. I'm so glad that it made it to you, B. Awesome. So what else did I want to tell you? So for this review, I am using the color Bear. Bear as in teddy bear or grizzly bear. So I'm curious, tell me in the comments whether you like the colorful, the fun and fanciful ones, or whether you prefer kind of the neutral, the more natural colors. I'm curious. So yes, Kathy, it just gets better and better. It really does. I think Rowan is really, is really kind of supporting mode and vice versa. I think it's the most beautiful relationship, so Rowan still has, its aesthetic and audience. And I think mode has just done a great job of opening Rowan and all of those beautiful yarns to maybe a different group of knitters who like things a little more streamlined and the designs a little more kind of clean cut, if you will. Yes. Yes, Amber. Aren't those colors beautiful together? They are just lovely together. So pretty. Evelyn, you like the blue? That dark blue is really stunning, isn't it? All right. Okay, so what else did I want to tell you? All right, so first impressions, I talked about the weight. the feel of it. If you don't have this in your tasting pack, or you didn't order the tasting pack, let me just tell you that this is the softest. It has the most beautiful soft feel ever. And it's very silky too, you know, so it's soft and it's silky and it's light. It's just incredibly cuddly. And that's in part by the construction. So I wanted to show you, I took a close-up picture of the yarn, and I want to show that to you. So here it is close up. Now, yarn never looks beautiful close up, okay? I mean, most of us don't, right? Most of us look better from a little bit of a hazy distance, right? But but I just wanted to show you the construction here. So this is a true boucle, which means that it has, it's wrapped. So it has that polyamide and cotton wrap around, but these alpaca fibers, they're not looped. Do you see, I'm pointing here, how silky, and you get that, the strand. So it's almost like petting an alpaca, you know, except it doesn't spit, right? So it's very silky and smooth because of those kinds of loose ends. I think sometimes a boucle can feel a little hard. Think about the difference between a Berber rug and a cut pile rug. So a Berber rug has that, you know, it's got a closed loop and it's a little harder than a cut pile. So this has those loose strands that make it feel beautiful and silky. Oh, Jal, yes, you're talking my language. So it was so soft after soaking and blocking. Yes, you should always do that with your fabric and see how it changes and how it looks and blooms afterwards. So thank you for that, Jal. All right, so that is why it is so silky. And you can see that you have this little lumpy bit, and then there's a place that's kind of skinny. And that just gives it, so the more texture there is in the yarn itself, the more texture you're going to get in the fabric. So that is good to know. So it's a hugely textural yarn. And what else I want to tell you about it is it's extremely inelastic. So normally, you know, with a yarn, you can stretch it and it'll retract, and stretch it and retract. You could stretch this all day long. It's not stretching. Can you see that? It's not stretching at all. So it doesn't spring back. And that's really important to know, because when you go to knit it, you want to make sure that you're adjusting your needle size, not necessarily from the pattern, but kind of from your mindset. So you can have anything you want in a yarn, right? You can have elasticity, you can have drape, you can have spring, you can have silkiness, but you really can't have everything. So you can't have this texture of yarn and have that kind of elasticity. So you just have to know going in that it's not going to be an elastic yarn, which is fine because knitting is an elastic fabric. You're building elasticity into your fabric by creating those knit stitches. So you don't have to worry about its elasticity in the final fabric. You just have to know that as you're thinking about what size needle to use. So I am making this. I am making this brown, they call it a gilet, which I guess is a British word or French word that means vest, but I like to call it a sleeveless jacket. And I saw the pattern, and it had a gauge of 12 stitches to 4 inches. I guess I want to share with you Karen's, honestly think those loose ends would drive me crazy, your OCD. I don't think it would, actually. I think you should try knitting with it. That's why we have the little taster so you can see. I think you would really like it. It's just a beautiful texture and you kind of get used to it. So I'm knitting that gilet and I'm looking at the pattern, and the pattern says 12 stitches to 4 inches. So me as a knitter, I am going to get 12 stitches to 4 inches on a US size 11. The pattern recommends a 10. So I think, okay, it recommends a 10. I'm going to try it on a 10. It's probably recommending a 10 because the yarn is so inelastic. I've already stretched it to find that out. So I cast on for a nice big swatch on my US 10, and it was way too big. I mean, way too big. So I went down to a 9, and it was still too big. And I went down to an 8, and yeah, that was the Goldilocks. That was the Goldilocks size. So I wanted to show you those 3 swatches that I did. So here is the swatch at the top at 2.5 stitches to the inch, and this is 2 3/4. So this was on my 10, this was on my 9, and this was on my 8. So yeah, so I was pretty surprised at how that was, and I think part of it is because, like Karen, I was worried about those little strands. I was thinking that that I needed to fret about them, that I needed to pull them through, and that I needed to kind of ease the little bumps into position. And that's what I was doing. And, honestly, I'm still doing that on the 8. I like to have it be kind of even, but that makes my knitting a little looser. I don't know any of you who had the tasting pack. What did you find in that? Go ahead and tell me in the comments. Yeah, I would love to hear what your thoughts were on swatching it. So anyway, I wanted to also show you, I took a video of the different fabrics before I ripped them out, and I wanted to show you that as well. So let me get that up. All right, I need to go back to the beginning. All right, here we go. Okay, so this is the biggest swatch, and that's the one at 2.5 stitches to the inch, and you can see how kind of loose it is. And then on the 9, it's a little bit tighter. You can see you can see through the fabric less. And then on the 8, it's very close, and you really aren't seeing any light through the fabric at all. So that was the difference in the gauge. So at 2.5 stitches to the inch, it was a lovely light fabric, but it definitely didn't have the kind of heft that I think they're calling for in this particular garment. So I went down until I found the right one. And okay, let's see. Eveline says, much softer than expected. It looked like it would be itchy, but not at all. Yeah, no, it's so soft. Not itchy a bit. And Jal, swatch was on an 8. It's a light fabric, but not too tight. Yeah, agreed. So I think the 8, surprisingly, to get 12 stitches to 4 inches on an 8, I think that was kind of an eye-opener for me. Terry saw she did the tasting, and she said that the aria was easier to knit. Yeah, I think that this is definitely a little bit challenging to knit, but worth it. I think it's a beautiful yarn. Another thing to know about it is that it really doesn't have any stitch definition. It's not the kind of thing that you would want to do cables in or to do any kind of knit and purl motif. It has so much texture that you just want to knit it in a very simple stitch that has some knit and purl, maybe both on the same side, like a garter stitch, which is knit every row, and it's going to give you a row of knit and a row of purl, which is going to really highlight and showcase the texture of this yarn. That gilet that I am knitting is worked in seed stitch. And then Mary did a beautiful scarf in stockinette. And it's lovely in stockinette, and you can see the very textured on the purl side and a little bit smoother on the knit side, and that's really lovely. The teddy bear coat is knit, I think, in reverse stockinette, which I think is a good way to showcase the texture. You know, I always say this, texture tends to the purl side. So if you have a textural yarn and you really want to see all that texture, make sure that you do that either in reverse stockinette or in some kind of a fabric that gives you the opportunity to have knit and purl on both sides, like a seed stitch or a double seed stitch or garter stitch. So what else did I want to tell you? Oh, there are some beautiful, beautiful yarns. I mean, there are some beautiful designs made especially to showcase the beauty of this yarn, and I want to show those to you now. So this is the teddy coat, and this, I think, is what you probably have seen kind of in the stores or on the runways lately. Full length kind of teddy bear, super, super cozy garment. I wanted to answer Gwen here. So was it hard to judge the gauge due to the texture? Yes. So what I did, and I have a picture that I can show you later on, I took the swatch off of the needles and I laid it down, and I put my ruler right up next to the stitches so that I could count the loops on the fabric rather than trying to count the stitches. When you have a really textural yarn like this, where it's very hard to see your stitches, another way that you can do that is simply to cast on the number of stitches that you need in that swatch, and then measure that and see if it is larger or smaller than 4 inches. If it's a stockinette fabric, then you're going to want to kind of pin that down to see. Does that help? And Terry's been in the shop and seen Mary's scarf. It's really beautiful. I have it right at the front of the shop, and it really is a lovely, lovely piece. And I hope to have this gilet finished by the time we have the trunk show next weekend. So that'll be good. All right, so back to these garments. So this is the teddy coat, and I think this is gorgeous. It's worked in reverse stockinette, and it has this beautiful lapel, and they are showing it in both snow and biscuit. Snow, obviously, is the white one, and biscuit is the one that looks like a biscuit. And this is worked with 2 strands held together of the boucle. So it goes very fast. It's knitted on a size 13, and these are the bust sizes. For Rowan, the first size is typically the size that you would knit if you were a 32 to a 34 bust. This would be the 36, and this would be like the 38. So 12, 13, 14, 15 balls held together. This would be a very fast knit. Wonderful. Next is the teddy gilet that I am doing. And this has the similar kinds of finished bust. So you can see that they're expecting this to have a certain amount of ease, you know, pretty decent amount of ease in it. And this is, as I said, worked singly. So you have 5, 6, or 7 balls of the Rowan soft boucle. Again, this is shown in snow and in bear, which I just love. Isn't that fun? And then the last is this teddy cardigan, which I think is absolutely so fabulously elegant. Again, worked with 2 strands held together, and very quick. Don't you just love this notched lapel? This is worked in what they call a moss stitch. So kind of a double seed stitch. Very beautiful. And I just love I love how it's worn over this kind of evening dress thing. Don't you love that look? Isn't that just beautiful? And this is shown in ash, which is kind of a silvery gray. I think this would be beautiful in pink. Wouldn't everything be beautiful in pink? So there is that. And yeah, so wanted to see Risa was also in the shop and liked this scarf. It is beautiful, beautiful. So if you are thinking about this yarn, I would encourage you to choose something very simple like the gilet, which has very simple shaping, or a scarf, and just knit it up and let it be a beautiful fabric. You know, just let the yarn do what it does best. Tell me in the comments which of the garments you like best. Evelyn has already said that you like the teddy cardigan. Is that right? Yeah. Yes, that teddy cardigan is beautiful. So Valerie, in the baby blue, this is really kind of a silvery blue. They call it ash. It's just lovely. And it definitely has a blue cast, but it isn't kind of a baby blue. So the Rowan Soft Boucle doesn't come in a baby blue, but the ash is very similar. So Gwen, the teddy which? The cardigan or the coat or the vest? All right, Karen, I'm not sure what you're saying here, honey bun. All right, so did anybody have any questions about this? I wanted to talk about the needles. Did I talk about I didn't talk about the needles yet. So I was thinking that with this much texture that I would want a pointy needle. So I cast on the back and I knit the back with Chalgu red lace needles, which are very, very pointy. They have a stiletto tip. And normally I can kind of knit by touch alone, but I found that I had to pay a good bit of attention to my knitting on those needles. And I thought, well, it's just because it's very textured. But I thought I would give it a try just to see on my Addi Turbos, not my Addi Rockets, but the turbos, the regular turbos, which have kind of a rounded, I call it a ballpoint tip. And I'll tell you that knitting this yarn on the Addi Turbos made it go much more smoothly. And I don't know if it's because of the finish on the yarn, but I think it might be a little bit part of the finish, but also it was because that tip didn't catch in any of the loops. It didn't catch in any of the hairs. So it was much more smooth sailing for me on the Addi Turbos. So as I always say, you know, the right tool for the right job, and that's why you need multiple sets of needles. It's not just because I sell needles, but honestly, you know, you need the right tool for the right job, and different yarns require different needles. Now, I would encourage you to sample it on the needles that you have and see how you feel about it. If you're having trouble with it, switch to a different tip. You know, switch maybe to an Addi Turbo, or if you're finding that the Addi Turbo is too blunt for you, switch to one of the pointier tips, like an Addi Rocket or a Chalgu Red Lace, and see which one works for you. For me, it's important that I don't have to fiddle with every stitch. So I wanted something that was going to make it very smooth for me. So let's see what everybody has to say. All right, we got a lot of people loving the gilet and the vest. Yes, that is gilet. So gilet is spelled Gillet. Yeah, so cool. Yes. And all right, everybody likes that. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you like it. I think it's going to be really fun. And like I said, I should have this finished by the time we have our trunk show next weekend. So if you have not seen, I can't remember if I put that in the newsletter or not, but we'll be having some small groups of folks in. So I have several opportunities to come in and see the trunk show so that we can be at a nice, safe, socially distanced opportunity. And I think that will be really fun. You'll enjoy seeing the garments in person. And it's not just the soft boucle. There are lots of garments from Mode at Rowan's Autumn Winter 2021 collection that we'll have there. So I'm super excited to get that. So Gwen said that she tasted with the Addi Turbo. And did you find that to be really effective for it? I did. I loved it. And Risa, yeah, so excited to get my Rowan tasting kit. Okay, I will be excited to hear what you think. And Annette, yes, you also. So good. It wasn't just me. Everybody found the Addi Turbos to be better suited to the task of knitting with this yarn. So that's what I would recommend, is that try it on Addi Turbos and see if you don't have better luck kind of missing any of the little loops in there. So thank you so much for joining me tonight and for your interest in Rowan Soft Boucle. I think it's a beautiful yarn. I'm in love with the designs. I'm excited to get my own gilet finished and maybe even make this teddy cardigan, which I think is so elegant. Again, if you have an opportunity, if you're local and you want to come into the shop to see the garments, I would love to have you. That will be next weekend. That will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Also, I think next week at this time, I'm going to be showing some of the garments for those of you who are not local or still don't want to come into the shop. So that'll be a lot of fun. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next week. It's a pleasure as always. So keep knitting.